here, then can get in or whatever the.
Are we good? Thank you. Now, having just spent a good part of that last session talking about ammonia, we're now going to talk a little bit more about ammonia for another 45 minutes. Because there's a lot to be said about ammonia. Norway has been investing quite heavily in hydrogen, and there's a distinct focus within that investment channel into ammonia. So what I'm going to hope to do with our panel now is to look at a little bit more detail about ammonia production, where we are with it, how we're dealing with the safety questions, how we create the opportunity for the ship owners to have the confidence that ammonia is going to be ready for them to make those sort of investments. So before we start, we have a video from you, Andreas, don't we?
Today, shipping stands for 3% of global carbon emissions. Deep sea shipping makes up almost 90% of that. This cannot continue. That's why we are now changing the game. This is Höegh Aurora, the first of 12 Aurora-class vessels. She will be the largest and most environmentally friendly car carrier ever built, and is a monumental step on our journey towards our net zero goal in 2040. Höegh Autoliners have always innovated. That's who we are. And this is probably our biggest innovation ever. One that will change the industry. I'm boarding Höegh Aurora less than 4 years after the first ID of the Aurora class was launched. It's setting a new standard. It's the first vessel in its segment that will be ready to run on clean ammonia. The world is requiring climate action. With the Aurora class, we are delivering. We're also delivering exceptional cargo capacity, 9,100 cars, and all decks and ramps strengthened to be able to carry EVs on all decks. We are leading the way towards net zero, raising the bar on sustainable deep sea transportation. And we're doing this together with best-in-class partners and the Norwegian Maritime cluster. Sustainable shipping is possible, not in 15, 20 years, but right now. We are proud to be making the impossible possible.
Good. Andreas, you said that it was 4 to 5 years since you started that dream to seeing that vessel being built. When you made that decision, it's still largely true, there was no ammonia, there were no engines. There wasn't even the safety structure in place to sort of secure that knowledge. Why were you so confident then that you were going to get your boards to agree to put so much money into such an extravagant new building program? Were you confident that they were going to say yes?
I think our owners and our board were extremely eager to see that when we embarked on a $1.5 billion investment program, that we made sure that those investments were sufficiently future-proofed. But at the time when we started, it was all about fuel optionality, right? We basically said that we didn't know exactly what would happen, but we basically were pretty confident that during the lifetime of this vessel, there would be game changers that would require new fuels. Then we had also done thorough analysis. We worked closely with Rystad Energy and others, and we were also convinced that if ammonia happened, it would clearly be the lowest cost and most scalable shipping fuel available. And we also said that it is actually the only of the range of fuels we're talking about that doesn't have that C in it, that makes CO2 when it's emitting, right? So from net zero to actually zero. So we hoped for ammonia, but we didn't know. And I think the most remarkable part of that story is not that we actually did some work and did future-proof that investment. I think it would be stupid not to. But it took 2 years from we considered this to be a 5 to 10 year future-proofing till we actually were able to place a firm order for the first ammonia engine. And it was not part of that when that was written. I mean, now we have confirmed delivery slots and everything for the ammonia version of this vessel. You know, it's 12 vessels in total. Vessel number 9 is going to be delivered in the summer of 2027 with dual fuel ammonia propulsion and not ammonia ready. And it's doing two things. It's actually proving our concept is important for us. I think we believe we're the only ones that have actually built really ammonia ready vessels. A lot of people say because the engines can be converted, but there is so much weight in ammonia, it needs different tanks. Cutting off these vessels to put in new tank structures is difficult. And when you're putting in tanks that are twice as heavy, you also need to do it does something with stability and of the vessels. So even Höegh Aurora that you saw here, now running on LNG, has that design in terms of strength and stability and material in the tanks to be able. So it's actually and with the order of the actual ammonia vessels, we also fully engineer the conversion. So we now will be in a position to have, if we add 5 years from this, we would basically by 2030 we can have 10 ammonia-powered vessels. I'm not sure we will, but we can.
You can, if you get the fuel. But this is part of the discussion that I want to have. And just that you know, so with us on the panel, over there we got Marthe, Therese, Solaas from Yara Clean Ammonia. She's responsible for market development. So I'm going to be talking to her a little bit about how she sees people like Andreas being able to get hold of ammonia. Alexander here, similar, big company producing hydrogen, largely out in Asia, I think. But certainly looking at how that hydrogen is able to move on towards the ammonia picture. And Sofie here, Sofie Fürstenberg, Stott, who I've known for many years, is going to help me sort of unpick some of that safety aspects of it. And also, because she's been working quite closely with IBIA, the International Bunker Industry Association, she can hopefully give me some sort of pointers of how the whole industry sees this transition. Because, I don't know, you're probably all fairly familiar with the bunker industry. It's a rather strange industry, if I can call it that, of companies supplying hydrocarbon bunkers at the moment. There's obviously facing a huge change. So at some point, they're going to have to find new sources of their what they want to sell to the shipping industry. So I'm going to look at that sort of transition as well. But let me start then, Marthe, if I could go to you in terms of, just tell me then, what is your idea of sort of production volumes that you're going to have to meet? What demand do you've got the production, you've got the demand signals from companies like Höegh Autoliners, but what other sort of signals are you seeing now that ammonia is beginning to become popular in the shipping industry?
Well, first of all, I would just say that we already produce volumes, and the amount of volume, that really depends on the markets available. So, like the maritime industry, if the maritime industry now, listening a bit into your previous panel, if we can see some more leadership in the maritime industry, we will be able to produce the volumes that's required in the right scale. And then I also want to commend Höegh Autoliners for taking the first step. It's really impressive. And for us, it's so important to be able to work closely with these type of ship owners so we can learn from each other. Because it's quite important to make sure that this market starts the right way. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty around if it's going to be enough volumes or not, but we are not so concerned about that. We feel also that the infrastructure is in place already. Yara, as I said, is already producing. We're shipping ammonia today. So for us, it's about scaling up. And in order to make ammonia as viable and a good fuel to use and compete with the other alternatives, we need scale. So more ship owners like Höegh Autoliners is needed.
But how about the production volumes that are going to be going elsewhere, and also the colour of the ammonia? Yeah. That's the colour of the ammonia, you know what I mean? Sort of grey, blue. Yes.
So we're talking about blue, green, maybe purple in the future.
Or turquoise.
Yes, turquoise. Yeah, we are focusing on blue and green, or low carbon and renewable ammonia. For us, blue ammonia is important because that's the color of ammonia. That's maybe the easiest version to scale up.
Can you explain the difference, just very briefly, the difference between blue and green?
Blue ammonia is carbon capture and storage. And we have some projects in US where this carbon capture is very easy compared to some other places. But this is a very good starting point for low carbon ammonia. And then you have renewable ammonia, which is green. And that's produced with the feedstock of wind, solar, or hydro. So that's the difference. Okay. And then the purple one, that's with the nuclear. But that we will wait a bit with that until the future.
What color is the Aurora class going to be?
I think now that Andreas is gone, I think we will we will initially be agnostic. I mean, we basically believe that I think we subscribe to Andreas' vision that the big power of ammonia is that it can actually be made totally green from places in the world where you actually have sun that is very difficult to monetize otherwise. And but I also think the fact that it has a blue route, is also one of those things. In addition to a lower cost, is one of the things that really sets it out from methanol and other that actually has a C in it and do require the biogenic CO2 which is an additional expense in the process. But initially we are talking clean ammonia, not not green ammonia in our customer discussion. Yeah. It will be a discussion with the cargo owners because it's a question of their acceptance. But the way it is now, blue ammonia, properly made blue ammonia, will be accepted in the EU structures, and we consider that to be a viable fuel. We will love to use green, but it's longer and still more expensive, so it requires more from IMO and customers.
Yeah, I just would like to add, because there's a lot of discussions about, blue ammonia, low carbon is still a carbon. The feedstock is natural gas, so by definition, it shouldn't be environmentally friendly, or it's not green enough. But with the proper processes, you can actually reduce the carbon up to 99%. So it's actually quite good, and it's much easier to scale. And that's because of the, when you need renewable electricity to produce ammonia and hydrogen and ammonia, then that's actually the limiting factor.
Yeah, and just one comment on that. I mean, we hope that carbon capture will be effective. We believe that the talk about carbon capture on board as an alternative is not really viable for our long distance, because we would have to have several thousand tons of carbon storage on board in order to make that happen, which would, even if we had the places to put it when we got there, would cost us millions of dollars a year in lost cargo space. So for us, we would rather do the carbon capture in a large industrial facility connected to a pipeline to an oil reservoir than actually doing all of that mess on board our vessels.
Capture the carbon at the start.
Yeah.
Simplified.
Alex, can you tell me a little bit about Intercontinental Energy? And I'm guessing, as you're in Norway now and you're largely over in Asia, not many people would have heard of Intercontinental Energy. Can you tell me a little bit about what your processes are, because you're focused on the green hydrogen. So tell me a little bit about kind of who you are, who you serve, basically, and how you see the role of shipping in as a customer for you.
Sure. Look, I doubt anyone's heard of our company. We're now 10 years old. I've been doing renewables for 15 years before, and 10 years ago we decided the world was going to need green molecules. And coming back to the point Marthe made about these big deserts that aren't being used, we decided let's get on it. So we started developing 3 mega projects in the world, well more, but 3 is where we are now. One of them is now with Shell. Shell's come in as our partner on one flagship project. The other is BP. BP came in to partner with us on one of the others, and then we still have one more. Our smallest project is a quarter the size of Denmark. Our biggest project is more than half the size of Denmark. These are projects that are flat. The wind speeds are North Sea. The solar is better than Spain. Exactly the theory you heard earlier. We believe that's how you generate scale. So these are massive, massive projects. They will be done in nodes, though. So we've basically spent 5 years designing Lego blocks. So these projects will be built in Lego blocks. Build them in a factory, standardized, like a shipping container, right? We're not building super complex, large-scale projects, but they're going to be done in phases using Lego blocks. These are mega, mega projects, so they take time. Our first project started development 9 years ago. We're hoping to reach FID in 3 years. Our big beast, WGH, started 5 years ago. We're aiming for 2029, 2030 FID. So we can't brag that we're making stuff yet, but we can brag we've spent a lot of money developing big projects so far. My investors are losing patience.
Big dreams, then.
Yeah, so we decided scale. That's basically it. We said scale, 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 go big, 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 and that will drive down cost.
Why does it take so long?
Because these projects are the size of countries. It just takes that long to get through the permitting process, to get through the design process, to work with the local communities. Now, our projects are all uninhabited, but people live on the edges. So, you know, our biggest project takes about 1 hour and 10 minutes to fly across. It has its own time zone. I think it's the only project in the world with its own time zone. And that's the scale we're driving towards. Now, we might turn out to be wrong, but, you know, we have a portfolio that could produce 46 million tons of green ammonia per annum.
Sorry, say that again?
46 million tons of green ammonia per annum from our portfolio.
From when?
Starting 2032, it will go up by 1 or 2 million per year. So we can't just flick a switch and 46 comes online. That's insane. But we start building our blocks, and over time, they come online. So that's the plan. It's, again, I can't brag it's there, but we committed to this journey a long time ago, and we have BP, Shell, our key investors are the Government of Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund, Hy24, which is the world's biggest hydrogen fund. That's our vision.
Are you convinced that you're going to be able to get enough? If he's going to be able to deliver 46 by, sorry, I forgot the year, 20...
Well, our first is 2032.
2032, but certainly not the 46, as you said then. How much are you producing? What's your production scale?
So we produce 8 million today, grey ammonia, and then the plan is to scale up, of course.
And I know what the producers quite often look for, and I've heard this, I heard this last year from a couple of ship owners. The producers want to have take-off agreements. They want Andreas Enger to come up and sign a 15-year deal to get a green ammonia or green fuels at a certain price. But Andreas Enger is not going to go up and sign a 15-year deal at a set price.
But I think that's all those sort of silly arguments that is used to say why it's difficult, right? Because you know it's clear we are not going to make those offtake agreements because we are buying fuel on behalf of our customers. We need to have this structure. But here is where, you know, the IMO achievement, scaling up so you drive down cost, you know, getting the regulatory structure in place. I mean, if you'd created the regulation that was predictable, that took away the gap between fossil fuels and zero carbon fuels, you would clearly have financial intermediaries that would close that gap in the way they finance oil and gas projects and every other things, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and first, I think it's also, you know, that's another kind of way of trying to kill this, right? You think because we cannot go to decarbonizing the entire shipping fleet in 5 years, it's impossible. it starts in baby steps and you accelerate, right? And so I'm very pleased with that. We need a few 100,000 tons in the early days. Today, MAN has also, because we're talking about safety, said that they're only selling 30-ish engines in the first round to what they call carefully selected customers.
30 engines.
Because you need to understand, you need to have crew that is properly trained, you need to understand the safety, you need to have the operational capability, you need to understand what it actually is to buy a new engine, and not all ship owners can do that. But what we're talking about now is getting started, and I'm confident that if we get it started, it will accelerate. The engine production will accelerate, the fuel production will accelerate, price will come down, IMO will get their system in order, and you will get the financial intermediaries you need to manage that, bridge that gap.
So, Sofie, let's bring in the other suppliers at the moment, the bunker industry.
Yeah.
They are, if you've been in the shipping industry, you know the bunker industry. Are they ready? Are they looking at this, or do they look at ammonia and just go, nah, it's not going to happen for a few years yet? Are they in denial? Are they getting ready, or are they looking at changing how they invest in their fuels? What's the strategies?
Thank you for that question, Craig. The bunker industry is definitely trying to get on the ball here. But the bunker industry is used to corruption. They recognize there are opaque structures in the industry. And you mentioned IBIA, the International Bunker Industry Association, and they are very much concerned that the new fuels will be difficult to ensure that they are what they say they are. Today, of course, when the bunker industry is concerned with the current fuels, it's about the quality of the fuels and the correct volumes. But when we are moving now into the GFI reality, we need to follow the carbon. And we talked about colors here just now, and the IMO LCA guideline is currently recognizing 11 different pathways of ammonia. So there's no point really in talking about colors anymore. And so it's either that it's produced from fossil sources, that could be methane, it can be coal, it can be through electrolysis, but that electricity can be from a fossil source or from a renewable source. The nitrogen can be pulled from the air with renewable energy or fossil energy, and all of that can be mixed, right? We are not going to see clean batches of a certain type of ammonia in only very few cases. And so the industry is concerned now about making sure that we have, first of all, a globally agreed common standard. What does low carbon ammonia mean? How can we follow the carbon? How can we make sure that when we sell this fuel, we can credit that carbon footprint? And
so you're talking about a certification so that the fuel that you get is certified as a level of green?
Exactly. And also have to remember here that maybe Yara will not agree, but the ammonia industry is not used to the maritime industry. They currently don't have the maritime industry as a customer. 80% of all the ammonia that is produced today is for the agriculture industry as a fertilizer. But why the ammonia industry is so interested in maritime is because they are seen as a potential first mover to ensure they can kind of secure demand and scale up. And why is that then? Because the agriculture sector is extremely complex and they have many other problems to solve before they focus on decarbonizing their fertilizers. But that's also very important here to keep in mind. My husband said to me yesterday, we worked together, and he said to me that, Sophia, the shipping industry is looking at shipping as a verb and not as a noun. And what he tried to convey with that is that when we talk about decarbonization, we look at the action of shipping and not the entire industry. And this is why it's so exciting with ammonia, because here we have ammonia on the ship as a cargo, and it's serving so many other industry sectors. But coming back to your question, the bunker industry is far from ready. They are the slowest to digitalize, and I think digital solutions are really what's going to be the proof of the pudding here, that we can ensure that we are selling ammonia as a fuel with a certified and verified quality and carbon footprint.
Because that's something you're going to have to do as well, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, but I think also it's again about getting this started, right? Because our bunkering will start in Singapore, where MPA is committed, in Antwerp, where the port is committed. We will probably be able to find some blue ammonia in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere, and there might be something coming in. And one of the reasons actually we can be first movers on this is that we have a very, very sort of fixed trading pattern globally, that we only need 4 or 5 places, because it will clearly take time before this is scaled to be available for all shipping. But that's why we need to start, but scaling always starts with something, and our angle to this is that we start with something that only needs 4 or 5 committed bunkering spots, and then as we get to learn that and make that work, we can help scale it.
Good. Sorry, Marthe.
I have to comment Sofia's that Yara probably don't agree, which is kind of true, because then when you say shipping, you kind of you put all shipping segments into one box. We do ship ammonia today, and I think this is also a misinterpretation or something that's forgotten, because the shipping industry carry a lot of goods and products and gases today. And as such, ammonia is not a new thing in the shipping industry. But of course, when it comes to bunkering, it's a new product into the bunkering sphere. And instead of looking at all the problems and the issues, we should really see ammonia now as a great opportunity to try and tidy up the bunkering industry a bit. Because you have the possibility to use digital certificates. If we start right, we can do this very transparent, and you can follow the grades all the way from when it's produced and to its burn in the tank on the vessel. And just one more thing. When a company like Yara is starting to produce ammonia and looking to other industries, we are not leaving the fertilizer industry behind. The fertilizer industry is actually the backbone, and we have a requirement to decarbonize the fertilizer industry as well. But ammonia is a good opportunity. It's a solution for the maritime industry. It's one of several solutions, and it's really up to the ship owner to decide what type of product should I use to decarbonize my fleet. The shipping industry, which I think has been mentioned several times, emits 3% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. It's huge savings, and if you are going to achieve 100% reduction in CO2 emissions, you have to start with the fuel. And of course, we should also look into fuel efficiency measures and so on, because then you actually reduce the overall consumption. So that's important. So I just want everyone to know that we are still focusing on the fertilizer. The shipping industry is a very interesting segment for us, because it's already very competent. We know that several segments in the shipping industry can actually use the product safely. And just need to add, when we were talking a bit about partnerships, so for us, especially in this enabling phase up to 2035, we are dependent on working together with trusted partners. So for example, like Höegh, or we also have a partnership with NCL. We have Yara Eide, the world's first container ship that's going to be fueled by ammonia. Here, this project would not be possible if it hadn't been for a very close partnership and everyone having a vision that they want to decarbonize. Yara Eide is an example of how we, as a company producing fertilizer, can actually also reduce Scope 3 emissions. So we will transport fertilizer on board Yara Eide, and we will have green fuel on board. And the thing with green fuels, which is very important, is that you have fuel in Maritime and you have credits for first movers. So if you're a first mover, there's so many opportunities to do this right, and you can actually position yourself in a very good place, and you can gain from it.
So you're thinking like that pooling mechanism,
Yes.
where you can actually sell the credits,
yeah.
basically, and have another revenue stream, effectively.
Yes.
And just to add, I think one of the actually very important advantages of ammonia as a fuel. It's new as a fuel, and lots of people focus on that. It's so dangerous, you don't know it, whatever. Yeah. And then for us, working with companies like Yara, that has actually produced, stored, shipped, loaded and discharged ships with ammonia for decades, and actually are known to be used in, I think agriculture and cooling components in fishery is like, I don't want to be arrogant, but I think it is a less controlled environment than our ships and our engine rooms. So in some sense, by using all this experience from a total supply chain that has so many similarities, and where we have decades of experience in how to handle it safely, is incredibly important for us to be able to basically ensure that we have safe procedures for this, because we don't want to put unsafe fuel and unsafe procedures into our vessels and expose our crew.
In terms of the cost, though, the cost to you, and it's one thing to talk about the money, and then there's, okay, we've got the carbon price that may come in 2028, small level, and then getting bigger. But if there are other industries, like the green steel industry, that is going to want to have the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, and if they're willing to pay more for it, are you going to, let's take your 46 million, if you've got somebody, and with the green steel who wants to invest in green steel, they realise that they're willing to pay more than shipping is willing to pay. You'll go for the green steel, because you'll sell to the green steel before you sell to the shipping industry, and therefore the shipping industry will have to compete with that kind of pricing challenge as well. So how do we get to a point where, other than waiting for the carbon price to come up, we actually create the incentives or the way that we can actually get the fuel to the shipping industry?
It's a good question. And if I was a ship owner, I'd be a little bit nervous as well. So, call me afterwards if you want to talk about it. But look, we're pretty confident we'll be supplying green ammonia, FOB Australia, at about $650 a ton, dropping over time. So if you look at the cost curve over time with the scale buildup, you start dropping into the 500s, and then you drop from there. So at some point, it becomes so cost effective, it dominates every industry that wants ammonia or molecules. But the 2030 buildup from 2032 to 2040, it's going to be an interesting decision. And if you look at what Andrew was saying before, now one of our mega projects is very close to one of his mines. So you can sort of see how that might work. If you took the Pilbara, where Andrew's mine is, if you did all of that, if you took all of our AREH project, which is the one with BP, 26 gigawatts, right? That's probably more than Norway has on its entire grid. That would do about 4% of the Pilbara in green iron terms. So we would decarbonize only 4% of the Pilbara with a project of that scale. So when you look at the challenge in green steel, it is enormous. And then, we talk about chemicals, industrials, Japan, Korea, they want it for power. So there are going to be, and we haven't even talked about the aviation industry, right, who are willing to pay more than anyone. So I think shipping is going to be in competition for the cheapest ammonia. Now, if you want to pay $1,000 ammonia, there's a lot more choice. But like in any resource sector, there's the cheapest, then there's a more expensive. It's a step, right? So if you want to be at the lower end of the curve, you need to be out there and talking to people who will be able to produce it at that cost. That's my advice.
And will that be regional then? Is that depending on where the location is? Yara clean ammonia in Norway, you in Australia. Would you be able to generate cheaper ammonia because it's more sunny there?
Of course, but it takes cost to ship. right?
Yeah.
So we're FOB Australia, probably 650 in 2032. The further you ship it, the more expensive it becomes. If you would rather source ammonia for Europe, maybe the Middle East is cheaper, right? Because it's a closer shipping destination. I don't believe any thesis that sees Europe producing volume. You don't have half of Denmark empty with wind speeds and solar and all the rest of it.
We have the North Sea.
You have the North Sea, but offshore costs a lot. It's not cost competitive with onshore,
And
right? Onshore, I have a remote
and
crane.
have you been to Scotland?
You know? So, yeah, and that's the other thing is the supply chain. Where's all this green ammonia equipment going to come from? And it's going to come from China,
Yeah.
right? So I was in China a few weeks ago. If you took this entire conference center, every single hall. So I was at one factory where as we walked through, they turned the lights on so that I could see the robots. 150 people for a 24/7, 365 operation of a factory the size of this entire venue. How does Europe compete with that kind of equipment production?
Yeah.
It just can't. So the reality will be most of the equipment will come from China, and most of it will be installed in massive deserts. That's the business model. There will be some unique advantages here and there, but at scale, there's just no other way of doing it.
Yeah. Sofie?
Yeah, thank you. I have a little comment to that. And so if we look away from getting the cost down of producing ammonia and rather looking at how can we make these projects bankable and how therefore can we reach scale and eventually then maybe also lower the production cost of that ammonia. I was standing in Abidjan, the capital or the financial capital, economic center of Ivory Coast last year in a conference room where a tall gentleman stood up and he was very angry and he said, "You Europeans, you are pursuing this decarbonization in shipping, you're pursuing ammonia, which is what we talked about at the time, just to make yourself richer and us poorer." He was very upset and it was a very uncomfortable setting that we were suddenly in. And it's important to remember that where we are in the world and the kind of the capabilities that we have and the opportunities we have, but this is a global challenge. And so coming back to this conversation here, I think in order to get the costs down, in order to make projects bankable, we need to invest in maritime capabilities, working with renewable fuels, ammonia, one of them. So we need to start small. We need to look at pilot projects in collaborative regions which can see synergies between them and where they can share acceptable risk in a closed environment, build capabilities that eventually will get big financiers interested to invest there, making more projects bankable. And I think this is something that we don't talk much about. We are very technology-centric, we're very fuel production-centric, but I think this is a very important point that we need to highlight, that we need capabilities, and we need that in order to make projects bankable.
Do you only produce ammonia in Norway?
No, we produce ammonia worldwide, I would say. We'd focus on Europe, Americas, and actually in Australia as well. And we ship it all around the world today. So I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'll repeat it in case I didn't. So Yara has already an infrastructure in place. So we are producing in 18 terminals, and we have 15 ships on the water today. We're the biggest shipper of ammonia. So for us, the infrastructure is there. It's about scaling it up.
And you mentioned that you're convinced that you can be able to get ammonia in 4 or 5 key bunker places at the right time.
Yeah, and I mean, in the early days, we will also be dual fuel because it will time to convert, right? So and I mean, in this picture, we have our ships, on their circle is calling on, it's passing Singapore, is calling on China, is calling on Japan, is calling on Australia, is calling on the Middle East, is calling on the US. So I mean, we'll probably rather choose to pick up as much as we can at source rather than having it shipped. But I think the other one, when we talk to our energy analysts, and I think Andrew Forrest made a clear comment on it, there is no natural limits to the scaling of green ammonia production, which means that as long as there are growth in users that are able to pay the actual production cost with full cost with reasonable profits, it will continue to scale, right? Yes, there will be periods of shortages and there will be some volatility, but that will sort itself out. But with IMO in place, shipping is the industry that will have the most effective, the best enforced mechanism for carbon pricing, meaning that I think it's actually likely that much more than aviation, I was just going to call it, and definitely much more than steel and cement and all the others. So it's with the IMO regulation that we talked about in place, shipping can very likely be the one with the highest payment ability, because it's the industry that only
will have a carbon price
faces an enforced carbon price.
Yeah, that's it for the reward mechanism.
But I mean, we need to get these things. We need to get decarbonization going, right? So we need to fix those things.
Yeah,
and we will.
That's October.
And maybe I'll just chip in here as well. Before, as I said, I did 15 years of renewable energy before, sold that company, started this one 10 years ago. But so I was there when Germany and when the UK and Japan put in place their mechanisms to develop renewable energy, first wind, then solar. And what happened was you had this sort of national team, right? The regulator says, do it. Consumers pay a bit more, you start a virtuous circle. The trouble globally is that molecules cross boundaries. They're not like power. And the difficulty we've got globally is how do you set up those relationships that can say, a consumer here is willing to pay more because the regulators here and there both want it. And I think that's where kudos to shipping. The IMO is a really unique organization that can drive that change. Otherwise, we're seeing it much more bespoke in aviation and steel. It's much more bespoke. Yep. And those industries hopefully will look at the IMO and shipping industry and take some inspiration.
Good. We've run out of time.
Just one comment on safety. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because for us, it's extremely important that you call us if you have any questions regarding safety of ammonia. There's so much misinformation still, which we're trying to work to remove. So please contact us if you want to discuss safety of ammonia.
Good. Can we say a big thank you to our panel here? Thank you. Now, in a few minutes, we've got another panel session, another Blue Talk, and we'll be looking at the role of the cargo owner. We're going to have Coca-Cola, IKEA, and Heidelberg Cement and the World Economic Forum on the stage for that. That'll be in about 5 minutes. Thank you.